Okay, so today we're going to talk about a tool that has been right in front of us the whole time and we haven't really used it. But down here where the X and the Y come together, we know that's 0, 0 down there, but it's called the Universal Coordinate System, or UCS for short, and it will allow us to kind of draw on different surfaces. So the thing we're making is not actually a UCS, it's just kind of a complex figure that I borrowed from another instructor. There's no real name for it. It's called Figure 1 in his drawing. So if you take a look at it, you'll see that there's a rectangular base with a notch cut out down here, but then there's some stuff up on top. This part in particular, this sort of semicircle cut out part right here, it's going in a different direction. So this looks pretty complex, and it is, but it's not as bad as you'd think. We just got to get used to using the UCS, which will let us draw in this direction instead of this direction on occasion. So we're going to leave that to the side so that I can refer to that with you in a moment. Here's what we're going to do to get started. We got to set up our screen so that we are looking at the southeast isometric view. So the way to do that is in the top left-hand corner where your screen says top. You're going to click on that, and then down here you're going to choose southeast isometric, and that will just set up our screen. So our UCS is over here with our X, Y, and Z. And you can see our grid is laying flat on the XY plane. You can only draw on the XY surface. So that's why we're going to have to flip this UCS around a little bit to draw the other surfaces. So the first thing we're going to do is make a rectangle. And this rectangle, we know if we look at the measurement here, just follow this circle, is 96 in this direction and 64 in this direction. So we're going to make a rectangle using the dimension option. So I'm going to click the rectangle tool. The point we're going to start at is 0, 0, 0. Enter. So that puts us right in the middle of UCS. And then it's asking us to specify other corner, and I'm going to type D for dimension since we know the dimension, and hit enter. And then we just said that one of the measurements is 96. I'm going to hit enter. And the other dimension is 64. And I'm going to hit enter there. And this is far bigger than we expected, so I'm going to zoom out. Okay. I'm just going to click over to the side because if you flip around your screen, you'll see which direction do you want it to be in. I'm going to put it over on the sort of right hand side here so that it's going along the X and the Y. I'm going to click there first. Now I haven't shown you this either, I don't think, but see how our drawing is off screen. You could grab your pan tool and drag it, but what I'm going to do instead is go to View, and under Zoom there's one called Extents, and Zoom Extents should zoom out to the maximum size of your drawing, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit after that. Okay, this takes into account the edges of your drawing. Okay, so now we have a 96 by 64 rectangle. Okay, now if I come back to my figure 1 over here, I need to know how far up in the air this is being pulled because we're going to push-pull it. So right here is the height, which is 16 units. So I'm going to grab the push-pull tool under my modeling tools. And I'm going to find press pull, sorry. I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to click the edge of the rectangle, and then I'm going to move up in the Z direction, and 16 is the amount we're going up, so 16, enter. You should end up with this here. Okay. Now, if you go back to the picture, you're going to see that we need to make this area next. Okay, because we have to cut that notch out. So there's a lot of information going on here. Okay, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit for you to see a little better. There is, and I'm sorry if it's blurry on your screen, it's a little blurry on mine. If you're looking right here, this is 16 units over is where the edge of this notch starts, right there, 16 units, okay? And then the actual notch itself is 16 units wide. And it goes in from the front edge of this 20 units, and then there's a semicircle up here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on making this box, this 16 by 16 by 20 first, and then we're going to add the semicircle to it, and then it cuts all the way through the object. Okay, so let's go back to our home screen here. We're going to do this. We could just try to draw lines and make it work, but what we're going to do is I'm going to make sure my snap tool, object snap, is turned on down here, so it should be blue. And right click. We're going to use some things like endpoint and midpoint and center. Actually, probably won't use center. So we at least need endpoint and midpoint. I'm going to turn off some other ones like perpendicular and tangent that I know we're not going to use. Okay, and I'll turn off all that. Okay, we may decide later to turn on some 3D snaps, which would be helpful. Okay, but here's what we're going to do. We could draw this. We're going to start by drawing this first line right here, the first line that's 16 in from the left. Okay, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to make a copy of this edge over here. Okay, this top edge. So we're going to go to Modify up on the very top menu, go to Solid Editing, and find Copy Edges. Alright, so I'm going to click Copy Edges. I want to know which edge I want to copy, so I'm going to hover over this left edge over here. Okay, and it's confusing because the whole block is highlighted, but once you click on it, you'll see that that one becomes like a dotted line. You see that there? So that's the edge we're actually working with. So we can hit Enter because we're done selecting the edge we want. Now, we need to make a copy of this edge headed in the Y direction. So I'm going to turn on my ortho mode down here. Okay, and first thing it's asking me on my command line is specify a base point for displacement. So where are we measuring from, or where are we moving from? We're going to move from this corner right in front of us down here on the bottom. So I'm going to click here. Okay, and then since my ortho mode's on, I can move out in the Y direction, so you can see that I'm headed in this direction. Just going to type 16, enter. Okay, and so now we have a line 16 out. Okay, I could, for the next line that we have to make, which is another 16 out, I could add those two together and do 16 plus 16 equals 32 and do the copy edge trick again. Or I could just make a copy of the new line we've created. So I'm going to go to copy, and I'm also going to click the line we want. I'm going to hit enter because we're done selecting. I'm going to grab the end point to be the base point to move it from. I'm going to slide up that Y direction again and go 16, enter. Okay, now we can hit escape. So we have those two lines. Okay, one here and one here. All right, and now if I'm looking at my drawing again, I can see that this goes back 20 from this front lip. So I'm going to go back in here and do the copy edge thing again under Modify, select, Solid Editing, Copy Edges, and I'm going to choose this edge right here on the top. Okay, and then I'm going to hit Enter, and I'm going to choose for a base point. One of the corners is always a good one to choose. And click there, start heading in the X direction backwards. Okay, and I don't know if you can see that it's headed that way, but I just zoomed out to show you. Oh, there we go. So you can see I'm headed back this way. I'm going to type in 20, enter. Okay, so you should end up with this. Now, we have a lot of trimming to do because we don't need a lot of these extra lines. So I'm going to go trim. I'm going to select all the lines. I saw the guy in the video do this, and I haven't tried it yet. Usually we select the thing that's going to act like the scissors first. But we'll try this. So I selected all three lines involved in my trimming, and I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to click off the parts that I want to get rid of. Oh, it is working. Well, heck, that's a lot easier. Woo! All right, so now we've got just this left. Okay, just this square. All right, so now, just keep that in mind for the future. That was really helpful. Okay, if I look here, there is a semicircle here, and the semicircle is centered on the center point. That's what this line is centered on the center point of these two sides, so that's 16 width. Okay, and it's kind of capped on the end of this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to draw a circle and trim it. So we're going to go to the circle tool, and I'm going to use center radius. Okay, click center radius, and then I'm going to hover over the midpoint. There we go, midpoint of this line. I click there, and wants to know where the radius is. Well, the radius is where it meets the edge over here, so I'm just going to click there, and we're done. So now we're going to try trim again, and this line is going to act like our scissors, I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to get rid of the bottom half of the circle. Good. Now I can hit escape, and I'm going to click this little line and delete it, so we just have that notch. Okay, so now we need to actually pull it down through the solid object, because you can see here that it's not on top of the object, it actually cuts right through. Okay, if you look inside the circle here. Okay, so I'm going to use push pull for that. So press pull. I'm going to select this area here. Make sure that it's giving you the whole outside of this. Okay, see how if I went over here I could just select this line. You want to make sure you're in the middle of this. Click. I'm going to head straight down, and I would snap it onto either the corner over here or the midpoint over here. Either one should give you a notch like this. Okay, and now I'm going to turn it from 2D wireframe. I'm going to hit escape first to get out of that tool. 2D wireframe to realistic. Okay, and then you can see this. Now, this line is here, and that concerned me at first, and then I realized that this is actually the original rectangle in step 1 that we did. So I can click on it and hit delete. Okay, awesome. So now we have this shape, which is great because that's what we want to do. I'm going to go to view, zoom, extents, because I got kind of off the side here. Okay, so now if we're looking back at our drawing, the next thing we need to try to create is this square with the semicircle kind of notched into it, okay? Which we have to kind of look at this. It is 22 units backwards from this edge, okay? It is 40 units wide, it's 28 units tall, and then on the top there's 8 units, then there's 24 is the circle, and then another 8, okay? So we're gonna make that, but here's the problem. If I try to draw a rectangle right now, you don't have to do this part, but you can just see what I'm trying to do. If I go back to my 2D drafting tools, click on rectangle tool, and if I start to draw, it's gonna be flat on the surface of this, okay? And that's not what I want. I need it up in this direction, okay? But look at where your grid is on your screen. The way your grid is laying on your screen underneath this object is the direction, is the way that you can draw currently on the screen. So we need to change that, and the way we're going to do that is using this UCS tool that I was talking about before. So if you hover over the XYZ, the UCS, you're going to click on it, and then there should be, if you hover over the center where all of them come together, should be some options, and we're going to choose move and align. Okay, so I'm going to click there. I'm going to move the UCS, the center of the UCS, up to the corner of the object up here. Okay, now mine did this, yours might not have done this. You can see that my Y, the green, is straight up in the air, which is actually perfect because that's what I need in order to draw the next part. You see how the grid has sort of flipped on its side. Okay, if yours did not do that, let me show you what that might look like. I'm just gonna flip this stuff around until it might look like yours. So yours might look different. Your Y might be going down, okay, or something like that, or your X might be in the totally opposite direction. Actually, let me just do move and align again and place it and then see if I can't get it to be different like that. Okay, so maybe your grid came out like this, okay? So that wouldn't allow us to draw in that other direction, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the end, there's a little blue point on the end of the green Y axis. I'm gonna click on it and choose Y axis direction. And since our ortho mode is still turned on, I'm gonna just head straight up in the air and then I'm gonna click. So that should give you a grid that is XY with the grid sort of straight up in the air, so on its side, so we can draw it in the same way that this is drawn. If yours is not, you might have to move the X, Y's, and Z's around until you get that. Okay, so be patient. You can do that. The other way you could do it, actually, under Tools, you can go to Tools, New UCS, Face, and you could choose a face that is lined up with the object that you are trying to draw. So like this face down here is the way we want it lined up. So I just click there. That's an easier way to do it possibly. So just wanted to show you a couple different ways. All right, so now if I'm looking back at my drawing here, the other issue that we're having is that this is not on the corner of our block. This is actually, if you're following this circle here, Okay, this is the corner of this square we're trying to make this rectangle. But it's not way back here where our block started. It's actually, if I'm highlighting it there, 16 units from that part. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use something we haven't used since the very first project in pre-engineering, which is absolute coordinates. So you know the program translates everything into X, Y, and Z. Okay, so since we've moved the UCS, this place right here is where 0, 0, 0 is. Okay, we've kind of retold it that. Now if you look at your screen, it actually says negative 96, 0, 0, but we're going to try this and see if this works. So actually, no, that's not what I want. Okay, so we'll try this trick and see if it works. So 0, 0, 0. All right, so if I'm going to create a rectangle, but since it has that notch out of it, that is a circle. I'm going to do it a slightly different way. I'm going to do it with the polyline tool. Okay, so underneath the line tool, there's one called polyline. I'm going to click on it. It's going to ask me where my start point is going to be. So my start point, if I'm looking over here, we have to think in terms of X, Y, and Z all at the same time. So from back here where my UCS is, that's 0, 0, 0. So headed in the X direction only, that's going to be 16. Okay. My Y direction is my Y coordinate is going to be 0. Okay, because it is flat with the top of that. And then my Z coordinate is 22, but it's headed backwards from the origin. So that means, that we have to make a negative 22. So I'm going to do polyline tool. I'm going to tell it that the X coordinate is, look again, 16. So I'm going to say, I got to slide this to the side so I can see it all at once. There we go. X coordinate is going to be, so polyline. Okay. My X coordinate is going to be 16. And then I do comma. My Y coordinate is going to be 0, comma, and then my Z coordinate is negative 22. Enter. And it should start. That did not happen where I would hope that it would happen, so we're not going to do it that way. Sometimes when I get stuff offline, they are using a Windows version of the program, and things act a little differently from there. So move origin only. Let me just try this really quickly and see if that works, because I want this to register as 0, 0, 0. Okay, if you take your UCS, we'll try it one more time after this. If you take your UCS and do move origin only, okay, and then place it on the top corner over there, then that should read, if I turn on the line tool, that should read that corner as 0, 0, 0. So I'm going to try it again with the polyline tool. And maybe yours worked the first time. So we're going to type in for the X 16, and then we're going to do comma. For the Y is 0, and then we're going to do comma, negative 22. Enter. There we go. So it is right there, which is a little hard to see. Okay. Now we're going to head straight up in the air. And the straight up in the air, if I'm looking at my drawing over on the right hand side, that's 28 high. So I'm going to do 28. Enter. There we go. Now you can see a little better where it's drawing. Now I'm headed in the X direction, headed sort of down. And that total distance is 40. So I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to go down in the Y direction, and that distance is 28 again. I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to go back to my original point here. I can just use an endpoint for that. Okay, so now if I hit escape, we have a square here. Okay, now that is great, except for we need the circle there. Okay, so now we're going to do a circle. So what do we know about this circle? Well, let's take a look at our drawing. Our drawing shows the circle, like half circle notch up here. I can't move my, there we go. Oh, I typed a little 16 in there. Well, that's helpful. All right, so this is the diameter, the distance across our circle. Okay, so the circle is centered and the diameter is 24. Okay, so we're going to take that and use that information. So I'm going to do a circle tool and click and hold, and there's a center diameter, so I'll use that. I want the center to be the top of this line. I'm going to click there, And then I'm going to tell it, whoa, now this is interesting. It's going in a totally different direction than I would have expected. I'm going to hit escape. I would have thought that since my grid is this way, that it would have built it this way. So click. Well, let's see what it does when I type in 24. Enter. Okay, so that clearly, I'm going to show you what's happening. I'm going to go to viewports, new viewports, to vertical. I just want to show you how that drew that. So if I flip this over this way, okay, that circle should not be going in that direction. So let me delete it and we'll try that again. I'm going to actually close this viewport. View, viewports, join. No, view, viewports, new viewports, just single viewport. Okay, there we go. All right, so I need to find a way to do this. So I'm going to move the UCS again. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to do move and align, and I'm going to move it up to the top of my object. This is actually good practice, okay? And then I need the Y going straight up, so I'm going to click on the tip of the Y one and move it straight up, okay? And I'm going to choose to make the tip of the X head in this, whoops. I'm going to click on the X one, grab the X direction axis, and move it this way. Okay, so now I have the grid sitting on top, so that might be easier. We'll find that out. And if I do circle diameter, center diameter, and click the center of this, no, it's still doing it this way. Well, let me try it with an arc then, because I only really need an arc. So 3-point arc, I'm going to click and hold 3-point arc, and get start and radius, start and direction. I'm not really loving any of those choices. Let me try something different, because this has always worked before, so I'm curious why it's not working now. If I grab a line, I want to see if I can grab a line and do from the midpoint here straight down. Can I do that? Yeah, it's going in that direction. Alright, so maybe it's because my ortho mode is on. Let me try getting rid of ortho mode. That shouldn't be it, but I'll do view, zoom, extents. Okay, so now circle tool, center diameter. Okay, and I'm going to click on the center is going to be here, and then nope, it still is giving me trouble. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to change our view entirely. So I'm going to go to view, viewports, new viewports, and I'm going to do 2 vertical and click OK. Alright, now I'm going to turn this into top view. Nope, I'm going to turn it into top view up here. Okay, so that's the top. So I really need the front. There we go. So I need this view. So I just went up to here and did front. Now my X and Y are aligned up the way I want there. So now I'm going to draw it in this right-hand viewport instead. There's more than one way to do this in AutoCAD. So center diameter is the type that I want. Okay, circle, center diameter, and I'm going to do the midpoint of that, click, and I'm going to, there we go. And so diameter we said was 24, so I'm going to hit enter. Alright, so now we've got it the way we want it. So multiple viewports sometimes can bail you out of a sticky situation where you're trying to figure out how things are aligned. So now I'm going to do trim, and I'm going to select all these lines and hit enter, and then I want to trim out the top and the middle. Yeah, that's way better than the old way I used to trim. So see, you learn new things every day. All right, great. So now going back to this viewport, so I'm going to click to activate this viewport. I want to pull this whole shape back. The only problem is if you're highlighting, and you can see it probably better in this viewport, you can see that it doesn't think of it all as one object. So we have to join them first. So go to modify, join, and I'm going to click all of these pieces of this shape. Okay, and make sure they're all there, including the bottom line. And I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to go to my 3D tools, modeling, and I'm going to do press pull, and I'm going to select this whole shape, and I'm going to press pull it back. Now I'm going to zoom out, and I'm just going to zoom in on this corner over here, and it looks like it's going to extend beyond, but it will snap to that corner. So if I click there, it'll snap, and then we've got this nice shape here. Okay, so now I think I'm done with this viewport over on this side. So I'm just going to say, going to hit escape first. I'm going to go up to viewport configuration. It's under the plus sign here. It's just a quicker way to get there. I'm going to say single. Okay. Whoops. And then I'm going to go up to where it says front and do southeast isometric. There we go. So now we've got it back the way we want it. You probably did that easier than I did and quicker than I did, but that's okay. All right, so now we have two objects left to do. There's a really easy one, okay, which is this triangle, okay? And since our grid is set up in this way, drawing that triangle now makes the most sense. So all I've got to do is trace some lines where that triangle is and then pull it back. So I'm just going to grab my polyline tool under drafting. I'm going to go down to polyline, and then if you're I'm going to use this edge, so we're actually going to pull it forward. So if you're 3D, if you're seeing the blue squares on my screen and you're not getting those, if you're getting green squares, that's probably fine. But if you're not getting anything, you can right click on the O-snap tool down here, okay, and go to settings, and you can turn on your 3D snaps. Generally, I try not to use 3D snaps with you guys because our computers are a little bit older and slower, and 3D snaps really slow things down. But I'm going to just trace this triangle. So I'm going to click from there, go to this corner, click there, go back to here, click, and then close it up here by going click there. Okay, and then hit escape. And so now, if I go to 3D tools, modeling, I can do press pull. I can grab this triangle shape and then pull it towards us, which is along the Z axis in the positive direction. And I've got it covered up on my screen over here. So let me take care of that. So this, if you're following the little red oval here, it says that it's 12 units that way. So let me try that again. Press pull, triangle, pull this way, 12, enter. Oh, and look at that. So that did something unexpected. So this is where I'm gonna Command Z that. Never quite sure the difference between extrude and press pull. So this must be where I need an extrude. So if I click extrude and I click the triangle and then I hit enter, there we go. That's the difference, I think. 12, enter. There we go. Now it's a solid object. Okay. Good to know. Press pull and extrude. All right. So now the last thing we have to do is we have to do this whole back section back here, which is like a curved wall, I'll call it. Okay. Zoom in a little bit so you can see it. Okay. So this whole area here, what this is going to be is it's going to be we're going to make it sort of a block first and then cut out. We're going to round this edge, so there's a way to do that. Okay, so it's 16 this way. Okay, and then so actually it juts up, it like hits the side of that over there. So we're just going to make 16. Okay, so we'll do it as a rectangle and then pull it up and then cut the edge. So I'm going to slide this to the side so I can see both things while I'm drawing. Okay, and so I got to change the UCS again. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click the middle and do move and align. I'm going to move it down to this corner right here. And then I need the XY to be flat like it was when almost. We need the Y and the Z to change direction. So I'm going to go Y axis direction. I'm going to turn my ortho mode back on, which I turned off earlier, and I'm going to click this way. So your grid, and that's not actually what I need because I need the X to stand up. So I'm going to do X to stand up like that. So your grid should be like in behind your whole object, okay? So that your grid should look like mine. So you might need to pause and take a minute to align your grid properly, okay? So I'm going to do, if I look at it, it is 48 inches tall, and because it's the whole width of the block, it's 64 inches. So I'm going to do it by dimensions. Okay, so I'm going to do a rectangle by dimensions. So I'm going to do and then I'll pull it back. So I'll do drafting tools, rectangle. I'll start the corner of my rectangle here on the edge where X, Y, and Z are all meeting. Okay, and then I'm going to go D for dimensions, and I'm going to say that it needs to be, what did I say, 64 enter, and then the height is, gotta move it over here, 48. Enter. Okay, now it did it the reverse of what I expected, I think. Yep, so I gotta do it in the other direction. 48 by 64. Rectangle, back corner, click here. 48, comma, wait, 48, oh, D for dimensions, sorry, enter. 48, enter, 64, enter. There we go, that's the size I want. And then I want to place it on the screen where I want it, which is right in the back, so I'm going to click there. Now I can extrude it, modeling, extrude. I can grab that and hit enter, and then I can pull it forward until this corner, or I could just say 16 because I know that it's 16 in that direction from that drawing. Okay, so now the only thing that's left is to get this curve here. This curve has a radius to it. Okay, so there's an imaginary center point. Think of this as a circle, and so the radius is 32. So this is actually a way to adjust this corner with a rounded edge. So we're going to go under modify. We're going to go under, let's see, it is under solid editing. And we're going to do something to, we're going to, oops, through solid editing, fillet edges. Okay, fillet is rounding. Okay, so I'm going to click fillet. Okay, then it says select an edge. So the edge I want is this edge right here. This is way simpler than it actually sounds. So if you click here, and then, oh, so it already rounded it with a number it came up with. So I'm going to Command Z it. I'm going to hit escape. Okay, so I need to tell it the radius for that. So modify, solid editing, fillet edges. Okay, I'm going to type R for radius and then hit enter. I'm going to tell it the radius of, according to our drawing, it is 32. So 32, enter. And then I can click on that edge. Okay, and then it's going to show me like a preview of it. Like, is this what you really want? And if I like that, I'm going to hit enter to make that happen. Okay, and then press enter to accept the fillet or the radius. I'm going to press enter again. Okay, and now you have this nicely filleted thing. So if I go to view, zoom, extents, you can get a nice view of it. Okay, so now the trickiest part now is that you have to add the dimensions to this. And I say it's tricky because the dimensions are going to come out really small. So if I go annotation and go to do a dimension, okay, there's two things that make it tricky. I'm going to use the linear dimension thing here, okay, and I'm going to try to dimension the bottom of this box. So if I click here to here, watch what happens. So it didn't do it, it did it along the back side. That's because my UCS is set that way, okay. So what I can do, since the UCS is flat against the back like that, is I can get the front from here to here, okay, and then it's going to place it wherever the UCS is. So if I wanted that to show up on the front, I would have to move the UCS. And there's a way, if you click on it, you can just do move origin only if you like the way the UCS is set up. So I want this on the bottom right here, and that will let me do this side from here to here, okay. Now the number is super small. If I zoom in, you can see it's 64, okay, but it's super small. So we need to adjust that, okay. So under dimension, first we're going to save this, file save, okay, because this could crash your computer, and if it does, then we don't want that. So I'm going to call it the UCS, okay. So if I go to dimension and go to dimension style, okay, there's annotative and standard. Okay, so there's a little gear here. I'm going to click on the gear. I'm going to say modify, and then primary units, unit format, decimals, round off, scale factor is set to 1, and so I'm going to change that to 8 and hope that this does not crash everything. And then I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click close, and now I'm going to delete that dimension because it won't do it to the one I've already done, and I'm going to try it again. So from here to here, see if that's any larger. It is not. Actually, the number's even different. So that's not even what I wanted. So we'll go to dimension style, and we'll go to modify again, and we'll change it from 8 back to 1. Okay, and we'll close it. I'm trying to remember where it is. Format, dimension style, that should be the same thing. Or text size maybe. Format, text style. Let's try it under here. Width factor, angle, text height. Let's change the width factor to 5. Well, now we're just playing around and see what's going to happen. I'm going to hit apply and close it. And then I'm going to try it again. Hit delete the one I have. Delete. Okay, and then I'll do this one here. From here to here, and we'll see what it says. Okay, so it made it wider that way, but it didn't exactly do it. I'm going to turn on my properties inspector and see if there's a way I can do it in here. So clicking that, clicking on the dimension by layer, line type, scale, plot style, line type, transparency, text style, standard. No. Okay, so I guess I wouldn't worry about them being too small. I do want you to dimension them and sort of check them yourself, but as far as making them bigger, the old school way to do it is to double click on the dimension itself and highlight the dimension, and then up here in the scale you can change it to like 5, should be 5.00 should be big enough, I think, and then you have to hit save. Okay, and that still didn't seem to do much of anything. Let's go to 10.00. Oh, I know what's going on. You actually, it looks like it's highlighted. If you double click it, now I have to actually highlight on it and then do 5, enter, and then 5 is probably going to be way too big. Okay. All right. The other thing you can do under dimension style is, you see how it's giving us all these decimals and we don't need them. Under dimension style, modify, we can actually turn off, it's called trailing zeros. Zero suppression, leading and trailing. So suppression means turn off. So I'm going to turn off trailing zeros and click OK, and then click close. And now you see that it's 64. Okay, so that's a really awkward looking number, but I'll let you guys figure that out. So you can actually, I would like you to play with the dimension style settings until you can get it working. The radius one, by the way, if you click and hold on the linear dimension tool, there's one called radius, and all you have to do is click this edge, and then the radius should show up. Okay, select an arc or a circle. Okay, and the radius should show up. Okay, it's doing it on the front side here because of where I have my UCS, but if I zoom way in, it should tell me radius 32. Okay, all right, so make sure you post your work, and good luck. Thanks.